You remember last month when I had my book haul? Oh, that's right. I didn't have a book haul last month because quarantine makes it kind of hard to shop or whatnot. Well, I realized that, online shopping still works. So let's talk about the book purchases for the month of April 2020. Hey, what's up, bookworms and book collectors, and those who just have somewhat of a problem collecting books, such as myself? Another month goes by, and another month I get to talk about some of the maybe not so responsible purchases that I made, but you know what? I wanted it, so I got it. I did not have a book haul video last month because the problem was you're not exactly going out to bookstores right now. And I like to go to physical bookstores and track things down that I've been looking for and things I didn't know that I was looking for, right? Well, obviously that's not an option anymore. And I'm sure that a lot of you have this problem right now while in quarantine is you find yourself perusing online shopping a lot more than you used to. Well, I was back at it this month and I made a few purchases. And so I want to go ahead and talk about them. Since I didn't have one last month, I mentioned this in a weekly update video, but I want to go ahead and put it in here because I don't know where else to put it. And you know what? It's my channel and I can do what I want. So I want to talk about the three books that I bought in March. And that was all that I bought in March. You guys might know by now that I am reading the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. And what I said is that I was amazed at how I bought 7 books from an author I'd never read before. So yes, that of course means I have bought his second series as well of Blood and Bone, and that is A Time of Dread, A Time of Blood, and A Time of Courage. I can't tell you much about this series yet, guys, because obviously I haven't read it. Besides, just look at the sick artwork that this guy puts out. Just fantastic artwork this guy has. And I mean, honestly, that's what first drew me to The Faithful and the Fallen. I've talked about that. I'm about halfway through book 2 in that series right now, and it's just fantastic. So I don't know if I'll be waiting on reading these after I finish that, if I'm going to take a break between those two series or not, because it takes place in the same world, but it does have a bit of a time jump in between those series. That's all I know about it because I don't want to be spoiled. But John Gwynne stuff so far, very, very good as advertised, and I think you guys should check him out. Next up, I think you guys have heard me talk about this one before, and I've told my story about why, not really why I hadn't read this, but my experience with this series is that I looked up to my brother at a young age and what he was reading. We were 6 years apart in age, and he kind of cut my teeth on high fantasy, epic fantasy, stuff like that. Be it Conan comics, be it Lord of the Rings, be it Shannara or whatever. But a series that I know that he always loved was the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. And I went ahead and got the first book in that series because while it's not on my list right now, my 2021 or 2020 list to read, I obviously do want to start this one because this is one of the pillars of epic fantasy, and a lot of people have said, including my brother, that this is where George R.R. Martin got a lot of his ideas. And I think, he's even got George R.R. Martin on the front saying, inspired me to write my own 7-book trilogy. 7 books, George? It's one of my favorite fantasy series, George R.R. Martin. So obviously, we know that this is very influential to George. He doesn't hide or whatever. I don't know how much about that, about how much George kind of borrowed, or as we put it these days, influenced by this story, but I've constantly heard that comparison. In fact, what I talked about with my brother is what he said is when I said, "Hey, years ago, like 2 decades ago, hey, you checked out this Song and Ice Fire series? I think you'd really like it." And he was like, "That ain't nothing but a Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn ripoff. You need to just put that crap down and read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn." And at the time, I was such a Song of Ice and Fire hunk. I was like, "I'm not reading that stupid series in." I was a much younger man, much different man when I was a younger man, rather. So that's why it hasn't happened up to this point, but I do want to do it because, again, I just feel like Tad Williams, can you really say you're a fan of fantasy if you haven't read any Tad Williams? So obviously that's one that I want to, mark off the list. And I can see that one slipping in 2021 somewhere for sure. I mean, you go back to that video I made of the series I want to start in 2021. Some of those are going to get pushed. Some of those have already come forward. I've already started Faithful and the Fallen. It was on that list. I've talked about starting Lycanius pretty soon. So yeah, it's my TBRs can go left to right really easily. The only reason I've stuck to the Wheel of Time and the Cosmere and God, was it Dresden Files is because of new releases this year. So that's what it is there. Next up, we have the Long Pryce Quartet by Daniel Abraham. If you guys do not know, I've talked about him on the channel before when I talked about The Expanse. The Expanse is a series I love quite a bit, but those are books that he teams up with Ty Frank to do. But this is his first fantasy series before he wrote The Expanse. Just himself, Daniel Abraham. And did I say Daniel Abraham yet? Or I'm just letting you guys figure out who these authors are. Daniel Abraham is, like I said, one half of The Expanse. And he's wrote this, and he's wrote the Dagger and the Coin series. A lot of people say that if George R. R. Martin kicks it, this will be the guy that finishes Song of Ice and Fire because he worked under George for a long time. I believe Ty Frank is actually George's personal assistant. At least that's what I used to hear. Don't know for sure if that's the case, but I'd like to see how he writes fantasy because I like how he writes science fiction. So I figured why not? This was a handsome edition that has 4 books in one. I don't mind a nice long series like this one. I don't like to try to go and collect like old hardcovers or something like that on a longer series if it isn't something I know I'm going to love. That's why I went that route. The trade paperbacks in both this and the Dragonbone Chair because digging up some of those old hardcovers can get kind of pricey. And I like these. I like these trade paperbacks because I mean they're basically the length or the size of a hardcover, and honestly, they're quite easy to read as compared to hardcover. I still love my hardcovers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to start a war between hardcover fans like myself and trade paperback fans, but this is much easier to read. You know, with a hardcover, I have to have a desk. This I could actually even read in bed. You know, so that's something important to me because I do most of my reading in bed at night after the kids are asleep. Let's move on. If you follow the channel for any length of time at all, you know that Stephen King is my dude. I don't think he's the greatest writer ever, but he's my personal favorite author ever. So anything that the man comes out with, I'm going to buy. And of course, this month, If It Bleeds came out, a 4 short story collection. I guess you say 4 novellas. He tends to do this every couple of years or whatever. This one has a Holly Gibney story in it, though. She's from the Bill Hodges trilogy and The Outsider. A lot of people who watch The Outsider on HBO first got introduced to Holly Gibney. I'll talk about that when I do my Outsider review. Holly Gibney is a wonderful, wonderful character in his books, and I'm glad that he's continuing with her here outside of the Bill Hodges books. Because I thought I'd never see that character again after the Bill Hodges books. So now this is her 5th appearance in King's Multiverse. So I'm very excited to read that. But there are 3 other stories in here. I've heard mixed things on it already, but you know his novella collections always get mixed things. I have said I can't believe at his age he's still pumping out content as good as he is, because like Outsider, I just read that like last month and I was like floored. I couldn't believe how good it was. So it definitely doesn't seem like age is slowing the old man down at all, because he's still pumping out a novel every year and they're still usually pretty good in quality. Another one that I want to talk about here that I got is another collection. I believe it has 4 or maybe 5 books on it. This is the biggest hardcover that I own. And I talked about recently that I'm actually going to do a special video on that soon, about how I wanted to read more female fantasy authors, because I felt like I was starting to get into that rut to where I was reading nothing but male fantasy authors. And like I said, it isn't for attention or a pat on the back or anything like that. I think that kind of stuff is silly. I want to see, if the ladies can hit some of the weaknesses I found in some of the dudes writing, and that is mainly in anything involving a girl coming of age and anything to do with female things, and especially romance. I think that a lot of male fantasy authors really, really struggle with romance. So I believe that's something that maybe ladies can use. Let's be honest, guys, women, they're more romantic than us. They know how to express themselves better. So I'm willing to see if that is actually the case, but not just for romance. I'm not saying I need a book just for romance. I just want to read more female authors, because right now all I've read is like J.K. Rowling and Anne Rice and Margaret Mitchell. I can't, or maybe Harper Lee. So I haven't read a ton of female authors. So I want to make it a point to try to expand my horizon a little bit here and read some. And that, of course, starts with Ursula Le Guin and the Tales from Earthsea. the books of Earthsea. I think Tales of Earthsea is actually one of the books. This is heavy, so I'm not going to hold it up the whole time or whatever. But this is an illustrated edition. While the illustrations aren't as sharp as say like what Robin Hobb did in the what is it in the Assassin's Apprentice that just came out, or obviously not in Brandon Sanderson's Warbreaker hardcover or leatherbound that just came out. The artwork isn't as good as that is, but it's still pretty good. What I like is this: it has a lot of maps in it. See if I can find one for you while I talk to you about it. And I think it's something really cool to be able to follow along. No, I can't find one. It's heavy, so I'm putting it down. But to be able to follow along with her story, and when they're going through a catacomb or a maze or a dungeon or something like that, to be able to follow along with them, that Wheel of Time companion book had something like that with the last battle that I was actually able to follow along with that, and it was really, really awesome. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of that one there. And that leads me to my last one. And I said in a recent, if you follow me on any form of social media or the Discord, by the way, please join the Discord. You can find it in the description below, the link. Just hop right in, join us. We have all kinds of great discussions over there, and it's getting larger every day. And that's the quickest way to get a hold of me, because the comments are coming on the channel so quickly now. I'm not able to keep up with any of them. Not any of them, but as I used to, where I used to respond to every comment. I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of them. So if you want to reach me directly, the Discord is the best way to do it, because I usually find time to read everything on there. That said I had a funny story about this, and what I'm talking about is these 3 J.R.R. Tolkien stories that were finished by his son Christopher. And what Children of Hurin, Beren and Luthien, and the Fall of Gondolin. And you would think, as big of a Lord of the Rings honk as I am, that I would have read these before, right? Awesome slip sleeve and everything. I never knew, one, that these were available in hardcover still, without just paying through the nose for them. Second, I'm a really big Dune fan. And if you know what happened after Frank Herbert died, in my opinion, others disagree, in my opinion, his son, Brian, has completely bastardized that series. He said he was working off of his dad's notes. Now he's written like 20 books in that universe. And I'm sorry, in that case, the apple fell very, very, very far from the tree and rolled downhill for quite a while. Never has been quite the same. Nor should it have to be. We're not all our father's sons when it comes to the talents, whatnot. But I remember when Children of Hurin first came out, it was around the same time that Brian Herbert's continuation of Dune, which would have been Dune number 7 after his dad died, came out. And I saw this and I thought, Christopher Tolkien, I ain't interested in watching another of these legendary authors' sons come and bastardize their work. That was my mistake. I did Silmarillion, and I kind of the same thing there. So it was really just a dumb mistake by me. I always assumed that is what it was. And it wasn't until like 2012 or 13 that I learned that's not the case. And I was like, well, at this point, it's too expensive for me to go get these hardcovers. So, I'll get to them one day. Found a pretty good deal on this box set. So I said, why not? We're going to get that because it's Tolkien, right? And Tolkien is my dude. And I am always interested in expanding that universe that he built. That universe that he built, I've said, is untouchable in the rest of fantasy. I don't think that there's anyone else that can touch what Tolkien has done. And this is another one of those that has just beautiful, beautiful illustrations in it. I'll see if I can get it right there for you. And the Eagles. Hey, the Eagles. Anyways, anytime I'm going to take a chance to expand on what Tolkien was able to do, I'm going to check it out, and this is no exception. There's a person on the Discord server who just constantly talks about these as he's reading through them right now, and I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and look up and see if I can find them. And I was shocked that not only could I find them, but it wasn't super duper expensive. Yeah, they're not the same size as a regular hardcover, but they're not quite like book club editions or anything like that. I'll show you a comparison in size here. So if that matters to you, that might matter a little bit. To me, I was like, I'm taking that over getting a trade paperback of them any day. But yeah, obviously these are going to sneak onto my TBR list faster than something else would because it's Tolkien. And I love this universe and I want to read more because I think back to when I read Silmarillion and I said, man, it's good, but gosh, sometimes it's like reading a dictionary. But you know what? I was much, much younger then. And I think I've expanded my fantasy horizons a little bit more now. And there are some of these books where people said, this is like the closest that Tolkien ever came to writing grimdark. And I'm like, wow, okay. So if Tolkien is going to, the master of this genre is going to write something, a subgenre that I love, yeah, I want to check it out just for that right there to find out how I feel about it. But it's Tolkien, I'm sure I'm going to love it. I know some of these stories, at least a little bit of Baron and Luthien and stuff like that. So I've heard of some of these things. Some was in the appendices and things like that. But to get full expansion on those and to know everything now, I always got more room inside the old noggin for some Tolkien. So guys, that is where I am at for the month of April. And I keep, anybody else stuck in quarantine keep forgetting what month it is? Because I thought it was April when I started this video. And then I was, no. So bought these in April, except the John Gwynne books. Those were bought in March. So just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys and say that is what I've been doing. Have you guys been shopping a little more than you usually would? Please hit me in the comments. Let me know what you have bought since quarantine started, and let me know what you think about any of these. Anything you want to talk about at all, hit me in the comments, guys, and I will talk to you there. Happy shopping.